walk-on music. I don't ever get that in my life, so thank you for that. Good morning. My name is Lara. Heads up, hello to everybody who attended my workshop yesterday. You all rule. Thank you so much. So all of the slides and links from this talk are on larahogan.me/team-friction. So I'm so excited to be here today because I like talking to all of you folks the most. It's kind of like over my career, as a front-end developer, self-taught, all the way up through being a VP of engineering at Kickstarter, I've had the pleasure of working with so many managers and team leads. And what I see most often happen is this team friction thing happening. So I was really eager to bring this talk to you here today. Along the journey of being an engineering manager, to a director of engineering, to a VP of engineering, I've worked with teams of 2, teams of 20, teams of 200, and I can say honestly that teams of people are amazing. Groups of humans working together are often more than just the sum of our parts. Throughout this journey, I've learned a ton about the variety of ways that humans can interact with each other. The good, the bad, the ugly. I have seen teams inadvertently knock over a site for a few hours, but I've also seen teams ship incredible user experiences that measurably make people's lives better. I have seen teams fall apart over being required to move their desks around a floor. But I've also seen teams, send a teammate flowers when they need to take time off to care for a loved one. No matter how often you might bump elbows or inadvertently, communicate something poorly or mess something up for someone else, I think it is a privilege to be able to come together and ship stuff. I think it's one of the most magical things. So, show of hands, who here is on a team that is currently super high performing? Like you've hit your groove, you've found your flow state? No one. Come on. All right, 10%. All right. Who here is on a team that isn't quite in that magical state of being yet, but you feel like you're on your way there? All right, more hands. All right. Who here, I promise this won't leave this room, only I'm being videotaped, no one can see you. Who here is on a team that's currently feeling some friction right now? Like, there's something going wrong. All right, cool. And who just joined a new team, so you're none of those things yet? Anybody? All right, a few. Cool. All right. So a guy named Bruce Tuckman carried out research into the theory of group dynamics. And in 1965, he published one of those theories, which, of course, he named after himself, Tuckman's stages of group development. So these are recognizable stages as a group of people changes from being a collection of strangers into a united group with common goals. So this is why I was asking you to raise your hands. I just named the 4 common stages of team development. So we start with forming. Forming is when the group comes together in its new state. The team maybe has a name and probably has some understanding of what their goal is, but there's likely other processes or patterns that still need to be defined or updated. Storming, of course it rhymes, it's business jargon. Storming is when teams start to see some friction. It's startling because you just had this magical moment of forming as this new team. But I promise, storming is a necessary part of these team dynamics. You gotta feel some confusion and some clashing in order to make it to the next stage, which is norming. Things start to iron themselves out, right? Individuals begin to resolve their differences or clarity is introduced. You kind of start to find your groove. Performing is that flow state. You're effective, you're communicating well, and you're shipping. It is a cycle for real. It's going to repeat itself throughout the life cycle of a team, even if you've been together for years. Anytime a new person joins, or a manager changes, or the mission changes, these teams, stages of group development can restart at those forming stage feelings again. So I'm up here today to reassure you that if your team is storming, that is super duper normal and necessary and healthy, and there is lots that you can do about it. The likelihood of you feeling some friction with your teammates is really high, and it could be for a variety of reasons. Someone's process doesn't jive with yours, you fundamentally disagree with an approach someone is taking to a shared problem, or someone is throwing over-the-wall work to you and disavowing all responsibility. Generally, friction is a common and necessary part of team growth. Sometimes it can grow to an unhealthy state, so it's really important to feel equipped to handle it, and when you can, help yourself or your team move out of it. Because if your team is spending a long time in that friction stage, whether it's minor or major, and you're unable to move forward, That's not great for your coworkers, that's not great for your company, and that's not great for your users. Team friction is a distraction. It takes your time and energy away from the thing that you're there to work on. It's also a distraction for the people around you, even if they're not directly fighting. So of course, it's going to impact the work. Here's an example. 2 engineers are passively aggressively commenting in each other's code reviews. No one in this room has ever had any experience with that, I know. They feign surprise at each other's technical choices. They actually out the wazoo in the comments. One begins fully rewriting the code of the other and shipping it to production without a code review from anyone else on the team. And that code may technically be faster, but the amount of friction and angst it causes means now everyone tries to avoid those awful feelings by also shipping to production without getting their code reviewed. And then the user experience degrades so much that a senior leader has to step in to figure out what on earth has happened. I want to make a point here of saying it is absolutely a leader's job to give feedback, to stay on top of these kinds of issues, and to enforce some corrections. But often, this friction is more subtle than my exaggerated example, and it can take a while for someone higher up in the chain to notice the depth of the friction that's happening, and then to investigate it, and then to accurately diagnose it, and then to correct it. It often costs a surprising amount of time, energy, and lost focus before the friction has made it to the level where another leader even notices enough to step in. So, what can you do to address that friction and help your team move out of the storming stage and into that norming stage? You can do a ton of things. So today, there's so much more than this, but we're going to cover my favorite top 3. What's happening in our brains and our teammates' brains, how to give better feedback to those teammates who might need to hear it, and some tips on how to prevent those classic team friction pitfalls. So let's start by grounding this in real world stuff. Who is this? The Hulk. What's he known for? Smash. Yeah, totally, right. So he is known for transforming into a different version of himself. Before he's the Hulk, he's Bruce Banner, right? And then he gets angry, he grows 3 sizes, he turns green, his shorts rip off, he smashes cars, right? The creators of this character were tapping into something that is core to all human beings, which is those moments when we are so overcome with emotion that we turn into different versions of ourselves. Before we dig in, I want everyone to take a second and think, what was one such Hulk moment that you had recently? When did you last become a Hulk version of yourself? This should not be a time when you felt really proud of the things that you did, but you turned into something unrecognizable. The example I gave in the workshop yesterday was when I got on the New York City subway. I live in New York, and there were these 2, I assume, tourists who got on the train car and stopped moving. They could have moved into the center of the car, but they completely blocked the door. And I was carrying a bunch of bags and workshop materials, and I heard that door ding, and I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna make it on this train car. So I shoved them. I know, I'm not a shover. I've never shoved anybody in my entire life up until this moment. I hulked out, I stumbled onto the train car, my Bluetooth headphones went flying. I was mortified. But I totally hulked out, right? This is something that's core to all human beings. You got your own Hulk moment in your head? Cool, all right. So let's talk about our brains. This work all starts with understanding what's going on up here when we feel this friction. I'm not a brain scientist, but I have learned a lot about being a better manager and teammate from some light reading on how brains work. This red bit in the front is the prefrontal cortex, and it is right behind our foreheads. So this part of our brains is considered the rational, practical, intellectual part of us. When you're involved in deep, complex problem solving, this part of our brain is fully engaged. It doesn't fully develop until you're between the ages of 20 and 24, but this part of our brain does super different work than my other favorite part of the brain, the amygdala. Many of you may already be familiar with it because it's one of the most important parts of the brain for processing fear and anxiety responses. Half of the job of the amygdala is to be constantly on the lookout for data in our environment that could be bad news. It takes in that data and it categorizes it as either threat or reward. There is no other data that it's interested in. If it happens to get some data that a threat is heading our way, it reacts and it goes into fight or flight mode. And if the threat feels significant enough, it tells that prefrontal cortex, the rational, logical part, Go on standby, I'm taking over. This is called amygdala hijacking. Your amygdala saw a bear headed your way, so it told the prefrontal cortex to go on standby, because what has helped us survive for millennia is this amygdala helping us out. It sees the threat, it tells that logical part of our brain to go to sleep, and it takes over. So when you were thinking about your Hulk moment, how many of you said, there was a bear headed my way? Sharks, nothing, right? Probably it was, I hope it was none of those things. More likely it was something in your workplace or in your home life or sometimes transportation that really made you feel threatened or upset, and you became so overcome with emotion. Because more than just physical threats to our safety threaten our amygdala. So social scientists, anthropologists, and neurologists have been studying this, and they have found that in the modern workplace, there are 6 core needs that our brains work hard to secure and ensure for us, beyond the need just for physical safety, food, shelter, etc. So learning about people's core needs dramatically shifted my management style and approach, as I can now better understand why someone's reacting in such a surprising way to a situation that I don't personally perceive as threatening. Let's talk about them. The first core need for the modern human is huge. It's the need to belong to a group, a clan, a tribe, etc. Just think about how many sitcoms have to do with the same group of friends all getting together in the same place every week. So when this core need is threatened, it is not a small thing. In studies, adults who believed that they were being left out by not being included in a video game, we saw the same parts of the brain light up as if they were experiencing physical pain. Any kind of social rejection is considered a high-threat situation to our amygdala. How could being a part of a group mean so much to our brains? It turns out, from an evolutionary perspective, social acceptance has been guaranteeing us access to our physical needs, right? Like better food if hunting and gathering in groups, access to safety in numbers, etc. Kind of like ring-tailed lemurs that sleep in super adorable group hug naps for safety and warmth. The lemur that's rejected from the group hug nap will be drastically less likely to survive. But back to the modern workplace. So we see this need threatened anywhere from when everyone goes out to lunch without us, to when we're not invited to a meeting that all of our peers are invited to. To your amygdala, these instances are not trivial. Think of the last time that you felt rejected or left out. Probably your amygdala was waking up. Next up is the core need of feeling improvement or having a sense of making progress. The sense of progress could be for your organization, like you're moving towards an important goal or mile marker. It could be about your team's goals, like your charter is really mission-driven and you're making a hugely positive impact on your users. It could be seeing improvement in your own career or life. I know a ton of people who get frustrated if the work that they're currently doing doesn't feel like it's affecting the greater good, or they're not seeing enough changes in their day-to-day work that's like furthering their own career progression. When we as humans feel like we're not learning or we aren't seeing fast enough growth in the things that matter to us, this core need can feel threatened. Our third core need is choice. So choice is the power to make decisions about your own life and your work. You might call this autonomy. I can imagine a time if a VP is hired above you and they sit down with you on their first day and say, I'm so excited to work together. I'm going to be with you every single step of the way and talk with you about every decision you are making because I get a say now too, right? It's going to feel terrible to your brain because we have this core need of autonomy and of choice. If you have too much choice, this can also make this core need feel threatened. Like, it's really important to find a balance about how much choice and autonomy we each have in our day-to-day. Our fourth core need is equality. So equality is the idea that the world is fair and people are treated as they should be. Everyone has equal access to succeed and to have their needs met. When humans feel that something is not fair, we start riots, right? Like, we will literally take to the streets. This is equally true in the workplace. Organizational psychologists see teams ripped apart, companies destroyed, and usership decline if there is a perception of a lack of fairness. It is huge. Our fifth core need is predictability. If every moment was 100% full of surprises, what would that feel like? Some of us actually would be pretty excited about it, but most of us need a balance of like too much or too little predictability. We need something in the middle, right? We need some balance of these things. Too much surprise, and our brains are overwhelmed with constant new data to process. Too little, and our brains are bored. Science shows us that we need a pretty balanced amount of stimulus to survive and to stay thriving. Let's get more grounded. What's a time when things felt so unpredictable that you felt like you couldn't get good work done? Or about when things were so predictable that you were de-energized or totally bored, right? Again, we need that balance in order to stay thriving. Last up is significance. This is essentially status. If someone's demoted, they're gonna feel a way about it, right? If someone's uninvited to an important decision-making meeting, this is our sense of status or where we are in the hierarchy can totally feel threatened. Sense of importance may also feel threatened if someone's work doesn't feel crucial to the larger picture, if it seems irrelevant to the mission of the group. If you've ever been assigned to a project that felt useless, you know it feels awful, right? Because you now have so little significance in the larger group life. So these core needs make up biceps. So Paloma Medina, who is an organizational trainer and coach, crafted this acronym to help us remember what humans' core needs at work most often look like. But let's go back to your Hulk moment. What need was threatened or undernourished when you hulked out? Often I find that my Hulk moments have to do with significance, but honestly, everyone is so different. Not all of these core needs and biceps are equally important to everyone. You might find that belonging is the most important to you, but predictability is the most important to your teammates. Getting to know what your teammates' core needs are and how to meet them is a shortcut to making others feel understood and valued. We are not mind readers. We can't see someone else's amygdala. We can't toss them in an fMRI machine to see when they're triggered or why. But we are incredibly perceptive animals, so we can try to sense it and course correct when we've accidentally amygdala hijacked the people we're actually trying to build amazing things with. Tons more on that resources page. But I want to make sure we're talking about feedback too, because when it comes to addressing friction on your team, there will absolutely be times when you need to give actionable, specific feedback to your teammates without amygdala hijacking them, right? And there will definitely be times that you need to hear some feedback too. So I want to go into this deeply. The thing is, humans are mostly really bad at giving feedback. We're also really bad at preparing ourselves to receive feedback too. This is true no matter the situation. Hearing that we do something at home that drives our partner crazy, or our coworker, or our boss. And most of us are paralyzed by the fear of having these awkward conversations. We will actively avoid asking for feedback because it's just so painful sometimes. Or we'll go out of our way to give non-specific, general feedback, sometimes via what some like to call compliment sandwiches, right? Where you sandwich a piece of constructive criticism in between two more positive things like, hey, your hair looks really great today. You really screwed up that project on Friday. But you're really smart, right? That's a compliment sandwich, and I'd like to help you avoid doing that. In the next section, I want to help encourage you to both overcome your fear of asking for feedback and help you deliver specific, actionable feedback that's truly helpful to others, because it's necessary for you to know how to help your team navigate its friction, and it's necessary for your own growth. Have you ever had someone tell you you did a good job? Hey, good job today. What does it feel like? It feels good for a second, 5 minutes maybe, right? But then your brain might start to wonder, what about that was good? Or how can I know specifically what I should keep doing? Or what on earth, why did that person say that to me? Why does it matter to them? Or was there anything that I still should change or that I still could improve on, right? What we crave is feedback that will help us grow. It totally relates back to all of those core needs at work. We want to know specifically what we should keep doing and what we should stop doing to feel that sense of progress and improvement. So let's work on this. As you get ready to develop some feedback for someone else, you'll want to construct it so that it has a chance of landing. I would definitely recommend writing it out first to make sure you can do a gut check about whether or not it's going to straight up amygdala hijack this other person. That's not helpful feedback. They won't be able to hear it, right? Instead, let's talk through what I like to call the feedback equation. So I think that this is the healthiest way to structure and deliver feedback. The feedback equation starts with a statement of your observation of someone else's behavior, the who, what, when, where. Observations can be recorded with a video camera. This isn't how you feel about someone's behavior. Let's say that someone's writing really terse emails to me, right? 3 to 5 words in the body every single time. I think they're really mad at me. I can't tell why. I always have to reply to them, to ask them for more information, to have a follow-up, to really understand what they're trying to ask me to do. I shouldn't go around and say, hey, I've got some feedback for you. It seems like you're mad all the time at me, right? I shouldn't be like, hey, why do you write such short emails? That's not helpful. Those aren't observations. An observation is, in the last 3 emails you sent me, they had 5 words in the body. That's it. Super. Who, what, when, where, why, just the facts. No one can disagree with this. Next, though, you can describe the impact of that behavior. This is how you can start to share how you feel. I noticed that your emails usually include 3 to 5 words in the body. When they're that short, I have a hard time understanding what you mean. I often need to reply to your email with more questions to get clarification or more context, which adds time to the process. It's a bunch of different impacts that I just described there. Hopefully one of them is something that this other person's going to care about. And then you finish it up with either a question to them or a request to behave differently. So a request might be like, hey, can you include a bit more context in your emails? But honestly, I'm probably talking to an adult. They already know this thing already. I would recommend, instead of making a request, start with a question instead, like a genuinely, authentically curious question. Can you help me understand why you write succinct emails? Or what are you optimizing for? This opens up a conversation. Because I've already described the observation and the impact, they've already probably started to think about what they should be doing differently. And a question kicks off that dialogue in a way that's hopefully not going to open up their amygdala to feeling more threatened. If you structure all of your feedback this way, not just the tiny little pieces of the big pieces of feedback, but the tiny little pieces too, positive and negative, you're going to see a massive difference in how receptive people are to the feedback that you have to give, and how creatively they come up with their own solutions to whatever the impact is that you've described. As you get ready to deliver this feedback in person, right, I want to ask you, what if you didn't, though? What if you chose a different medium? Do you know how they might prefer it? Some people do want to hear feedback in person, but others might not. They might want a Google Doc or an email beforehand to process it. Or they may want to see it on a shared agenda that you have together. That way they can prepare themselves for it or digest the information beforehand. Everybody is super different, so I would recommend you ask all of your teammates how and when they prefer to receive feedback. There will obviously be times when it's an emergency and you need to tell them this feedback right away, but outside of those times, I would encourage you to be sensitive to how they would prefer to receive it. Again, that way we can avoid the amygdala hijacks and actually develop feedback that has a chance of landing. Great collaborators are not great because they never upset people, right? Fantastic teammates take risks to move towards progress, and with progress comes some mistakes. You can't make every shot. So what matters is how you handle it after you create or witness some friction. If someone comes to you to give you some feedback, your amygdala may wake up, right? Feedback, fight, flight, what do I do about this? Studies show that it takes 6 seconds for your amygdala to chill out and for the chemicals that it releases to be processed in your body. Just 6 seconds. Your amygdala won't be able to break the cycle of fight or flight if you're still in that moment of surprise, if you're still feeling overwhelmed. So if you're able, take 6 seconds, take 10 seconds. Name 6 states in your head that start with the letter M, right? Or try to do some math or count to 10, whatever it is. I learned from another speaker here, Jason Wong, yesterday, that part of this has to do with bringing all of the blood back to the prefrontal cortex. Do some logical, complex problem solving to take all that blood away from your amygdala to help you actually process those chemicals and stop the amygdala hijack response. This is obviously not always possible. If you start to notice in yourself that you're still feeling triggered, you're still feeling hijacked as you're receiving some feedback, ask if you can receive it later. Maybe they can say yes, in which case everybody wins. So let's zoom out, right? We've covered a ton of tactics on when you've smelled some friction in the air, but what are some tactics that you can use today to help prevent team friction, for your entire team when you go back to work? So talking to someone one-on-one is usually the most impactful way to clear up some friction. But honestly, most of us want to avoid to do that or do it as a last resort. Please try to do it first. But I recognize that it may not feel safe or healthy to approach someone on your team one-on-one, to give them feedback or to learn about what their core needs are or to address it at all. If this is the case, see if you can leverage team-wide communication mediums or processes to get this friction a little bit more out in the open so that the whole team and maybe your manager can also help. Retrospectives are a perfect way to name some friction without it feeling, hopefully, too emotionally charged. If your team isn't already doing these, see if you can introduce them, right? By doing retros with some routine, you can normalize talking about hard things and team friction. It can become easier over time to address what's going on and to develop a lightweight action plan around it. When stuff is acknowledged with heartfelt authenticity, it tells people that their needs, their feelings, and their concerns are not irrelevant. It allows people's bellies to relax because their needs have been acknowledged. Studies have shown that people who are willing to take responsibility for their own failures are more likely to be considered by others as having stronger integrity and good intentions. So institute some retros and gracefully name some friction in them, especially friction that you may have sparked or added to. It can also be really helpful to have a living document that states your team's processes and expectations, right? Vision, mission statement, how we do stand-ups, how we do critiques. The best team documentation includes kind of a variety of things that the whole team collaborates on to document what are the expectations of the team, what's our North Star, what's our path forward. And sometimes it can be helpful to document team roles and responsibilities so that you can refer back to it if there's some confusion or friction between people and the work that you need to get done. A little while back, I blogged about using a Venn diagram. You can use any 3, 4, or 5 roles to basically distinguish between the overlaps, like who is doing what on a team, and who's doing what together. So you can see there's some distinct bits and some overlapping bits. That's really intentional. I have done this with a hiring manager, a recruiter, and a sourcer. In this case, I did it with a product manager, an engineering manager, and a tech lead. And I'll zoom in for a second. So you can see I have this distinct story that each person owns, but there's going to be some stuff in the middle too. This is not a one-size-fits-all Venn diagram, but I think it's really important to share an understanding on your team of who is doing what, who is distinctly responsible for stuff, who is sharing responsibility for stuff. Document it. You can always document it with a Venn diagram or with like written words in a skills matrix. No matter what, the most important thing is to have that shared understanding that you've collaborated on together so that you can move forward. Still, no matter how empathetic you are or how mindful you are, you may be in a situation where it's necessary to bring in leadership or HR. Maybe it's unsafe to give feedback to someone, or you're at the end of your rope trying to help your team navigate through this friction. Here's the best way to leverage leadership or HR when you need to bring them in. First, restate those observations and the impacts from your feedback equation. Leadership and HR won't be able to help, read between the lines of what's going on as efficiently unless you just state the facts of what you've observed and what the impacts are. Because although it might feel really good to let loose your anger or your frustration on someone else, it's usually not the quickest way to get leadership or HR to act on it. Have a safe space to share your frustrations and anger that's separate from this process. It can be helpful to help catch up leadership or HR about what's been tried already, to curb those behaviors that you're observing, or to lessen the impacts of them. You may also have an idea of what could be tried next, like, hey, let's introduce retrospectives. So definitely share it with leadership or HR, but also prepare to be surprised by what direction they take it. You have one narrow view into what's happening. So it's important for them to be able to take a holistic view and for you to try and trust that they will take a more holistic view once they've gathered the data that they need to figure out how to move forward. It's super okay, because as long as you've intentionally shared with them the observations and the impacts, you can see whatever they institute afterwards, did it fix them? Throughout this process, take care of yourself and do what you need to do to distance yourself from an unhealthy work environment if things go awry, right? If things are directly impacting your health or the way that things should be showing up for work. Everything that we talked through today can help chip away at or resolve some kinds of team friction, but they won't solve unhealthy or unsafe work environments. If you ever aren't sure if it's time to walk away, talk to someone that you trust about what you've tried and what you need. I am so excited for you to bring these tools and tactics back to your workplace after this. Your amygdala and your teammates' amygdalas will thank you. Remember, storming is a natural and a necessary part of your team's growth together. You are now well equipped to weather that storm. Thank you.